Welcome to The Artist Matters. I'm Alex Rudy. Each episode features an artist sharing their creative journey, their origins, what inspires them, their process, and offering up a little inspiration, motivation, and advice to help you on your creative journey. Whether you're doing it for fun or looking to make a living, this show will help you on your journey and let the world know your art matters. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Artist Matters. I'm your host, Alex Rudy. Welcome to June. Great way to start off the month. Hope everyone's Memorial Day was good and enjoyable. It was nice to have 3 days off. And I finished building my horse's stall. It's a lot of bending down and getting up, and bending down and getting up on your knees, holding a board. My wife is drilling the board in and then screwing the board in, and we're cutting the wood. Came out good. It was just very exhausting, especially in the humid and hot Florida heat. But I must say we did a good job. And I am very fortunate enough, as of this recording, to have my episode on Follow Your Curiosity debut. Nancy Norbeck, one of my guests, I interviewed her and talked about her show, and now I'm a guest on her show, Follow Your Curiosity, so you can see that. The link is already up. I could put it in the show notes anyway. And check it out. You'll hear more about me and my crazy life. And I also started a strange thing. At my day job, I like to take a walk, and there's this long bridge that's on the side of the courthouse, this nice wooden bridge that is parallel to a bypass road, surrounded by trees and bush and a little water. As I've walked on this bridge, which is only 0.2 miles in length, ideas and thoughts and life lessons and curiosities, fitting enough, have crossed my mind. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to give a little bit of my take on things for that short distance on a bridge? So why not record it? And I've been doing that. I call it Ramble on the Bridge. Just me talking into the camera from the point I get onto the bridge until I reach the other end on whatever topic is stewing in my brain. And it's posted on YouTube, and I'm posting it on the social medias, Facebook and Instagram, so you can check them out. And hey, write to me, leave comments, see if there's a topic you'd like for me to talk about, and see if I can come up with some solutions just based on my experiences and my ideas and notions and whatnot about what I think could possibly help the situation. Another creative outlet for me. But now let's get back into the show. The One Life to Live saga continues. Today's guest worked on the show for over 20 years. And he was a stage manager, had several other jobs starting it off, but stage manager was his main job for many of those years. And his name is Alan Needleman. Once again, we have Laurie Ann Davis to thank for connecting me with him. He was her stage manager, and she was the under 5 and background player in many episodes, and they got along, and I'm glad she connected me with him. He has so much to talk about from his early days in TV, how he worked on different sets in New York City and different shows, game shows included, even newscasts. And then when he had to go to the Olympics in Sarajevo, the Winter Olympics in Yugoslavia, that is an amazing tale of how he had to coordinate so many things, just getting a gigantic tractor trailer full of diet soda over there. Because Yugoslavia didn't have a lot of the things we're accustomed to. So he was responsible for getting a lot of things over there, helping coordinate with cameras and crew from other countries so they could get the shots of people skiing or doing other events. I was blown away by that. And his time on One Life to Live, you get a different perspective, because he also worked with Bruce Cooperman, who was our previous guest. So they both knew each other and won Daytime Emmy awards together. And just a wealth of knowledge. I was so pleased to connect with him, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this. So, without further ado, enough of my yakking. Here we go. Let's get into this and my chat with Alan Needleman. All right, let's welcome to the show Alan Needleman. Hello.
Hello.
All right, the One Life to Live saga continues. Hey. We have another person who was on that show. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's begin at the beginning. Where does your story begin geographically?
Wow. Let's tell you that my story begins in the good old Bronx, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, born and raised, and very close, close-knit family, relatives. Unfortunately, at the tender age of 9 years old, my mother passed away. So as a young boy growing up, my father relocated us from the West Bronx to the East Bronx so that we could be closer to family. And I, myself, and I had an older sister who unfortunately passed away. But my father wanted us to be around the stability of, aunts and uncles and people who would, be good mentors or guides, to us, so that we would grow up, wholesome. We didn't want to fall into the traps that were, in later years, drugs and, anyway. So the Bronx is where my story began. And my father was a musician, God rest his soul.
Wow. What did he play?
He played saxophone and clarinet. And in World War II, he fought under General Patton. And my father was a short little guy who played a baritone sax, which was a very, very big saxophone. And, Patton used to call my father Butsy because he looked like a cigarette butt. I mean, he was a small guy. Anyway, everybody else called him Needles, obviously, which is what they call me because the last name Needleman, it doesn't have any reference to drugs or anything. My father instilled that musical interest in me. And I was, as a young kid, I always was, clopping around, and I was a drummer. And my father was a professional musician in the American Federation of Musicians. And at times when they were looking to pick up somebody in New York, when they would stop here, at times he would play with Guy Lombardo. So a lot of times, I would hear, Old Lang Syne, and it would literally bring back happy memories because sometimes my father would play that with the Guy Lombardo. I don't know if they were called the Royal Canadiens then at that time, but it was Guy Lombardo's thing. Anyway, so I loved music. And growing up in the 60s and, I'm going to say primarily the 60s, the 70s is, because I started at ABC in 1971. But the reason for me going to ABC was because I was going to college. I graduated high school in 1971. I was 18 years old. And but I was playing music with some very, very good guys, one of which his name is Mitchell Colby. And Mitchell Colby's uncle was rather famous in the nightclub scene in Greenwich Village. His name was Paul Colby. And Paul Colby owned a club in the village called the Bitter End. So very often we would go down to the Bitter End and see these trendy groups, playing and thinking, wow, one day we could, be like them. Mitchell Colby he went on to become vice president of Korg USA. which was also Marshall, and now he markets his own amplification systems. He's very, very big in the music industry.
Yeah.
And we were in groups together. Mitch Colby and I and another kid by the name of David Klein, we actually performed at my bar mitzvah. I mean, there was other group, of course. There was another orchestra there, but we actually performed at my bar mitzvah. So I always had this love of music. And I was going to Bronx Community College because I wanted to become I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at that point. I mean, you didn't have to declare majors and things when you went to college at that time. And I thought, what might be nice? Something like medical lab technology. I mean, if I was killing rats on the streets of the Bronx, why not do it for medical purposes?
Nothing leaning towards music?
Well, ultimately, yes. I didn't, after about 2 months or 3 months of college, actually 2 months of college, September and October, I said to my father, and I wasn't adopted or anything, but I did say to my father, Chin Lee? No, my father's name was Irving. And I said, Dad, I think I want to leave school. And at that time, you could. You had the ability to leave school, and there could be a future for you somewhere. And my father said, okay, Alan, do you know what it is you want to do? And I said, well, I'd really like to do something at like a record company or something. I had no experience of what it was like to produce music. So I decided I was going to take the world by storm, as it were, and head into Manhattan with my I didn't have hair down to my shoulders, but I had neatly cropped long hair. I didn't look like the like Alice's Restaurant or anything, but I decided to go into Manhattan and to hit all of these record companies. I mean, in Atlantic Records and CBS, and I went to all of these places and said, gee, do you need anybody here to set up musical equipment or jacks or plug in guitars or anything? And of course the answer was always no, because that was all unionized. And I didn't know this. I was a young kid from the Bronx. What did I know? So I got a little discouraged, and I decided I was going to go to an employment agency to see if they had anything that kind of met that criteria, something like that. And I went to an employment agency, and they said, well, we have a job for you that you might be interested in. And I said, what's that? And they said, well, it's a job at ABC. And I said, what is ABC? Was that a bottle company? What is ABC? What does that mean? They said, no, ABC, like the ABC company, like ABC Radio, ABC Television. I said, oh, that's great. That's fantastic. So they said, but before we send you out, on an interview, we have to give you an aptitude test here. We, as an employment agency, we want to send out only the best people. So we're going to give you an aptitude test. So they gave me this wonderful aptitude test, kind of like they would give you before you go into the Army. It's like, how much is 2 and 3? A 5, B 16, so that kind of stuff. Yeah. And but there was some other things on there, but for the most part it was simple arithmetic, vision, addition, subtraction, multiplication.
Right.
And they gave you, so I did that, and they said, yeah, you're pretty sharp. And I'm like, duh, thank you. And they said, we'd like to send you on an interview to ABC, which was at the address was 1330 Avenue of the Americas. Oh. It was 54th Street and 6th Avenue, a block and a half away from what CBS called Black Rock. So Black Rock was here, and 2 blocks away